right, yo, I have got to hurry up with this because my Jimmy John just got here and I'm hungry. You know what I'm saying? I'm hungry right now, so we're going to fly through this video real quick. Just making this simply as well, it's fresh. I just got done watching the episode of the Joe Rogan podcast with Alex Jones and Tim Dillon. I jotted down just some things that it made me think about throughout it. And I don't know, to start, I was excited to see those two names pop up in my notifications that Tim Dillon and Alex Jones had been on the show. I didn't know that was coming. I would have highly anticipated it if I knew that that was a pre-planned conversation. For one, Tim Dillon, if you don't know, now you know. Dude's a genie. He's funny comedically in just the way he approaches thoughts and expresses some of those thoughts and ideas and analyzes things from, Tim Dillon's perspective. I enjoy. I think it's ridiculous. It's hilarious. Also very real and authentic, at least from what I've been able to see since I started following him just a few months ago now. I think just probably after I saw him on the Joe Rogan podcast earlier this year, maybe, I think. But yeah, I don't know. And the troll with the Ghislaine Maxwell shirt, I thought was pretty hilarious. That's just his style of comedy. Just kind of shocking and like what. But for context, he was wearing a free Ghislaine shirt. I thought that was pretty hilarious. But Alex Jones, man, what a fucking nut. He's literally nuts. Can't deny that he's also somewhat of a genie, though. His ability to like recall information and just like quote articles or explain, like rant for, dude could probably rant for like 6 hours if you let him. I mean, if you've ever gone to Infowars.com and watched any of the Alex Jones like shows or anything like that, you've definitely seen some of that. I don't know. It somewhat blows my mind. Is he wacko? Absolutely. Does he spit facts somewhat often? That's also true. I appreciated, though, also like Joe Rogan and Jamie fact checking him on the fly. That's pretty necessary. And they were regularly pausing to substantiate any of the claims that like Jones was making, and that was absolutely important because especially the way he like delivers his information so aggressively and just all at once, it's kind of like it's just like intense. You can't really take it all in, or you don't, it's hard to believe for some reason the way that he's delivering it oftentimes. But yeah, also Alex Jones and Infowars at one point in my life drove me fucking insane. Like early in my addiction to heroin, and like kind of like fueled my addiction because I was constantly filled with angst and existential dread. But dude's been right oftentimes, and his yeah, is he nuts? Yes, but has he exposed some real like tragic shit that's going on in the world with some of the elitists and the small group that do really pull strings internationally and here in the United States? Has he been right about some of that stuff? Absolutely. Also, when I was exposed to it when I was younger, though, it was like a little too much, like a little too much too soon. I was like, what can I do about this at 15 years old? And it really did just fill me with anxiety when I was first like exposed to some of the claims that Alex Jones makes. But we say claims, but I just got to reiterate, a lot of what he says turns out to be like true, and he can actually substantiate it. Let's see what else I got here. Like I think I said this before, maybe not, but you when listening to Alex Jones, you really got to approach it with an open mind and a willingness to like set your judgment aside and consider some of the insane shit that he has to say, because he really is crazy. Like in this conversation, they talked a ton of insane claims about the Bohemian Grove. They played this video of Richard Nixon calling it the most faggy goddamn thing you could ever imagine. I just thought that was nuts. they were talking about like the way elites will compromise people or one another by filming them like in like performing homosexual acts or acts with prostitutes or even kids, some people will claim. And then they use those people then to push forward whatever like elitist or globalist agenda. And even they talked about, Rogan had said at one point that like Alex Jones had exposed him to the idea, or not the idea, but the facts about Jeffrey Epstein very like early on, so like a long time ago, before he was even charged, like in 2016. So Alex Jones really is like apparently plugged into some of these streams of information early on. I think it's almost kind of like reassuring in some ways to see a lot of the claims that Alex Jones was making some years ago, like be held up and substantiated at this point in time and become somewhat like mainstream, because it like absolves some of that angst and dread that I was experiencing back then. But back to like the elitist way of like compromising people and using them to push their agenda forward. Rogan made this comparison of the Skull and Bones Club and the Bohemian Grove, similar to like a fraternity, where the claim is that these groups of elitists are loyal more so to each other than any U.S. or international law. And a lot of it sounds crazy, but they did really good in this episode, I thought, of like actually substantiating any claims that were made. Not all the claims were substantiated, but they took their time on some of the big ones to actually pull up some evidence of whatever was being said and share it. But they discussed also extensively the supposed power grab that's happening globally by these elitist groups, fraternities and oligarchs. They also cite China in these claims. I was just thinking how there's a lot of similar talk in this area and has somewhat become a part of like some regular conversations that are happening just in small like friend groups and friend circles and stuff, that like a lot of people are seemingly talking about. It's become more so regular to talk about like elitists and oligarchs and these small groups that really pull the strings around the world, and talking about like, is COVID a front for some form of power grab, for some authoritarianism or fascism to assert itself on the United States population. And Alex Jones was also describing this supposed plot for the UN to be deployed in the United States during the election count, and then he was saying, I think specifically it'll be like when the results of the election get contested by whoever contests it, which he just thinks it's going to be the Democrats contesting whatever result it is. And he's saying it's a specifically a plot to like divide the country, and he was saying bring it like back to some similar to like Civil War era split. And he was talking about like the Western states seceding or something like that, but some plot for the United Nations to be deployed to the United States during, he's saying, the 79 days of hell that will happen after Election Day. 79 days, with that, he's probably referring to when the inauguration would be. Yeah, I think that's probably about 79 days. So November 4th up to January 20th. Someone count for me. But I just jotted down here in my little notes that I was writing that part kind of lost me just a little bit, as far as it being a plot by specifically the Democratic Party in cahoots with like China or whatever power, just because it sounds like that just GOP, like Republican kind of conspiracy right now of like being opposed to like socialism and all this stuff. But don't get me wrong, there's definitely those types of points coming out, or those types of theories or whatever coming out from both sides, and just a lot. And you know, I think both sides are right in some of their claims, but absolutely like way off mark in some of their other claims. But yeah, the discussion kind of goes out with Alex Jones being drunk, being just incredibly like overbearing, almost hard to like understand, follow, or even want to listen to. But I still enjoy it. It's entertaining. How else would you be exposed to some of these things that are being talked about in this conversation? But I think it's dope of Rogan to really be willing to have these conversations with the likes of like Alex Jones, even after Alex Jones has been, you know, taken off YouTube, taken off Twitter. You know, he's kind of been ousted from the public square, I guess. But yeah, one other thing too, they're doing an election day show with, I guess Alex Jones is gonna be there, with Kyle Kalinske. I don't know who else, but that just sounds like fucking crazy, fascinating show, potential for a show. I'm certainly excited to tune into that and see what the fuck type of shit they're talking about on an election day show, and what happens on election day, and hear some of the live reaction to whatever is happening across the nation. If it's anything, hopefully it's not too dramatic come election day, but there's definitely some concern from a lot of people of maybe some you know, politically motivated violence, or you know, protests that escalate to riots, or just, I think people have a lot of concern, and I'll absolutely be interested to see what's happening in a room with who, I don't know who else would be there, with at least though Joe Rogan, Kyle Kalinske, and Alex Jones. Would be fucking fascinating. I imagine some debate of some sort between Kyle Kalinske and Alex Jones, but it'll either way just be fun. It'll make for a good dynamic. Yeah, thanks for making it this far. Make sure if you watch this whole video, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I feel corny as fuck saying that, but you know, I'm gonna be more active on YouTube and saying what's up and doing a variety of stuff. But I'm gonna eat this Jimmy John's, so Justin is out. Deuce.